I've made plenty of videos about various setups using the Roland digital pads, and one thing that comes up time and time again in the comments is the topic of playability, especially that of the digital snare drum. Is the digital snare that much better than a standard analog pad? And would it be possible to get similar results with something like a conventional snare trigger with a BT-1 to handle cross stick on a different module? Well, today I'm going to cover that topic. I'm going to show what kind of playability you can get out of a good analog snare trigger with a BT-1 for cross stick on a Pearl Mimic Pro module, and I'm going to compare that to the response that you get out of a digital snare drum when it's hooked up to the Roland TD-50. I just want to clear up exactly what I'm using to make these comparisons, what aspects of the playability that I will be comparing, and also importantly what I won't be comparing. On the TD-50 I'll be using the Roland digital snare, the PD-140DS pad, and I'll be showing off the head response, the rim click, i.e. just hitting the rim shot, and the cross stick articulation response. This is not a sound comparison video, so I'm not particularly interested in what it sounds like other than the articulations that are being played. The positional sensing will be on. The Mimic doesn't support positional sensing, so it's not going to be the main focus of the head playability, but the positional sensing plays a pretty big role in how the rim articulations sound on a Roland module, so I wanted to include it. On the Mimic Pro, I'm using a 13-inch snare pad with a drone halo trigger installed. This is purely because a 13-inch snare drum is my preferred size. If Roland made a 13-inch digital snare drum, I would probably buy one. But of course, I'm not comparing surface size in this video. The drone halo trigger is my personal favourite third-party trigger that I've tried so far. And no, I don't have a review of this trigger on my channel, and I don't really talk about it all that much. I've been keeping my use of this trigger pretty low key because the guy behind Drone appears to have wound down production at the moment to very small amounts. After purchasing the trigger and chatting with Mike, I didn't really want to send lots of people his way if he wasn't up for fulfilling many orders, so I don't have a review video planned. But that is the trigger that I'm using for anybody that wanted to know. It's a single side trigger with some additional dampening foam cones, and because the Mimic doesn't support positional sensing at all, I wanted to use a trigger that I get good, even response from. So again, I'm going to be showing off the head response, the rim click, and the rim shot on the snare pad, along with the cross stick articulation that's being played on an attached BT-1 trigger bar. And on both of these drums, I'm using a DrumTech Real Feel 3-ply mesh head. So from my perspective, the Roland Digital Snare is still probably my favourite pad that I've used. However, I do get very close to the same results using this analog setup on the Mimic. There were a few differences though. The drone trigger isn't quite picking up the tiniest of soft touches like the Roland Digital Snare does. In real world playing terms though, it doesn't really make a very big difference. Even the lightest ghost notes that I play don't go down to that level. There's also a chance that swapping out to a 2-ply head might change that, but I haven't tried it myself. There is also a slight hotspot with the analog pad when you hit directly on top of the cone, as you would typically expect, but it is easily avoided with it being a side trigger. There's a slight bonus with the analog route as well. On the Digital Snare, when you have your hand on the head, you can't get any other rim articulations, only cross stick. But when you use the BT-1 for this instead, you get the full range of articulations either way, because cross stick isn't being picked up by a sensor, it's just being triggered by another pad. Also, you don't get perfect response from the BT-1 at the lowest velocities when you're using it in its proper configuration. This isn't a fault of the Mimic, this is by design of the pad. It uses a switch inside like a cymbal edge trigger, and you need a little bit of force to close that switch. This is what helps to keep that crosstalk down to a minimum. On a Roland module you can swap to a different mode where it bypasses the switch, or you could do the same on the Mimic by choosing a different trigger preset. This will make the BT-1 a lot more sensitive and much more dynamic, but it also introduces a lot more possibility for crosstalk, because now you've got a really sensitive pad attached to the side of another pad that you're hitting. Now I know that some people will have wanted to see a version of this comparison on a Roland module so that they can work out whether or not they wanted to upgrade their analog pad to a digital one. The reason that I didn't do this is that I don't have a reliable center trigger, and I feel like the positional sensing would be a very important part of that comparison on a Roland module. If I do get hold of a good center trigger and enough people want to see that comparison, then I'll probably make it, so let me know down in the comments. But that said, I hope you enjoyed this comparison, and what did you think? Did any of it surprise you? Were you hoping for more or less out of either of the modules? Let me know down in the comments. And of course, if you did enjoy it, don't forget to pop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel for any other electronic drum related videos, check out my store at the eDrumworkshop.com for new kits and samples for your module, and above all, enjoy the rest of your day. I'll see you in the next video. Cheers!